Last night, inside a packed Supreme Court, laughter echoed mocking, sharp until Justice Amy Coney Barrett rose from her seat. Pam Bondi smirked, but what came next left her sobbing. This courtroom drama has America talking. A comment with where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button for more viral political showdowns that'll leave you speechless. Last night, inside a packed Supreme Court courtroom, something unforgettable happened. The kind of moment that shakes a nation and sets the internet on fire. It all started during a heated ethics hearing when former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi walked in with her usual confidence. She smiled, waved at the gallery, and sat down like she already won. But what unfolded over the next hour left that same courtroom in complete silence and Bondi herself in tears. The session began like any other, serious and tense. Justice Amy Coney Barrett sat at the bench, calm and composed. Her expression never wavered. Bondi, though, came in swinging. She interrupted. She smirked. And when Justice Barrett questioned a weak point in her argument, Bondi did something few expected. She laughed. It was not just a chuckle. It was loud, mocking, and sharp. The kind of laugh that fills a courtroom and makes everyone freeze. Phones started recording. Eyes widened. A ripple moved through the gallery. That sound, that moment, went viral before the session even ended. But here is where things changed. Justice Barrett did not flinch. She looked at Bondi with steady eyes and said just one thing, and what followed turned the entire courtroom upside down. Bondi laughed, but she did not leave laughing. She walked in trying to control the room. But it was Barrett who owned the moment. By the end of the night, Bondi's mockery turned to silence, and the world watched it unfold, one clip at a time. Pam Bondi is no stranger to pressure. As the former Attorney General of Florida, she built her name on tough prosecutions and bold public appearances. Some called her fearless. Others said she crossed lines to get what she wanted. Her legacy is a mix of praise and controversy, shaped by years of aggressive courtroom tactics and high-profile cases. She always walked in ready for a fight, and last night was no different. On the other side sat Justice Amy Coney Barrett, appointed to the Supreme Court with a reputation for deep thinking and calm resolve. She rarely raises her voice. Her strength is in how she speaks, not how loud she gets. Barrett does not posture. She does not try to win the room. She owns it just by being still. People listen when she talks because she chooses every word with care. She is the kind of judge who leads with presence, not performance. The case on the table was a fictional legal hearing focused on prosecutorial ethics. It asked tough questions about responsibility, power, and justice. Bondi was brought in to defend her legacy. The charges were not real, but the emotion behind them felt very real. The courtroom was packed. Journalists sat shoulder to shoulder with students and activists. People knew something big might happen. Bondi walked in smiling. She looked around the room like it belonged to her. She greeted the press, waved at a few familiar faces, and sat down like she already knew she would win. Her body language screamed confidence. Her tone said she came ready to control the story. Justice Barrett sat quietly, watching. She waited, and then, slowly, the session began. From the very start, it was clear this would not be a routine courtroom debate. The moment the session opened, Justice Amy Coney Barrett went straight to the heart of it. No small talk, no easing, and she looked directly at Pam Bondi and asked, "Ms. Bondi, do you believe this court takes prosecutorial ethics lightly?" Her tone was calm, steady, but the weight behind her words was hard to miss. It was not just a question, it was a challenge. Bondi leaned back in her chair, half smiling. She paused, glanced at the gallery, and then let out a quick laugh. It echoed just enough to turn heads. She shrugged and said, "Shaky logic. Your Honor, you are out of your league if you think I came here to be lectured." Her voice had that same mix of charm and edge that made her famous. But this time, it felt different. It felt like she was poking a bear. People in the gallery murmured. A few leaned forward. A couple of phones came up, held low but already recording. The energy in the room started to shift. Court officers watched closely. It was still early, but tension was already building. Justice Barrett did not react right away. She let the silence sit. Then she spoke with a voice that was low but firm. "You may challenge this court, Ms. Bondi, but you will do it with respect." There was no anger in her voice, no rise, but something about the way she said it cut through the noise. Bondi raised her eyebrows and smirked, like she could not believe Barrett was standing up to her. She started flipping through her notes, almost dismissively, but Barrett kept going. "This court does not answer to performance. It answers to principle. And right now, your argument lacks both." That line landed hard. The gallery was dead silent for a moment. Then the murmurs returned. Louder this time, some nodded. Others whispered. The tension had turned electric. Phones were now out in the open. Clips were already being posted. Bondi crossed her arms. She looked ready to fire back. But it was clear that Justice Barrett had taken control of the room, not by raising her voice, but by holding the truth steady and refusing to back down. And the clash had only just begun. Justice Barrett sat upright, her eyes steady on Pam Bondi. The room had barely settled when she spoke. Ms. Bondi, in your years as Attorney General, were your decisions guided by justice or by victory? Her voice was calm, her tone even, but the question carried weight. It was not an attack, it was a mirror, and it was the first crack in the surface. Bondi let out a breath, then smiled wide. The kind of smile that says she had heard it all before. She gave a soft laugh, then leaned into her mic. Shaky logic, Your Honor. You are out of your league if you think I came here to play by your rules. Her voice was smooth, with just enough edge to feel like a dare. People in the gallery shifted. In their seats, a few whispers floated through the air. One person held up their phone and hit record. The temperature in the room changed. Court officers straightened up. It was clear now that this was not going to be a quiet hearing. Barrett did not blink. She let Bondi's words hang for a second. Then she replied, winning cases is not the same as serving justice. Ms. Bondi, the court is not interested in your swagger. It is interested in your substance. Bondi raised her eyebrows. Her smile stayed, but it was thinner now. She looked back down at her notes, flipping a page too quickly, almost to break the moment. But Barrett's voice kept going, sharp but calm. Your record is not on trial today. Your reasoning is, and what I see so far is full of holes. The murmurs grew louder. A few heads turned. Phones were up across the back row now. Some filming, some already posting. The courtroom had shifted into something else entirely. It was not just a legal debate anymore. It felt personal, charged. Bondi crossed her legs and leaned back, trying to show control. But her fingers gripped the edge of the table. And Barrett. She just sat still, eyes focused, ready for whatever came next. The clash had officially begun, and it was only going to get louder. Pam Bondi was not backing down. If anything, she was heating up. She leaned forward, rested her elbows on the table, and gave a quick glance around the courtroom. Then she looked straight at Justice Barrett and said, "This place feels like an ivory tower. No idea what real justice looks like down on the ground." The words hit hard. People in the gallery stiffened. Court officers shifted in their seats. Even the air felt different now. Bondi was not finished. She flipped through her binder, more for show than anything else, then added, "You sit up there with your book smarts and your neat little theories. I lived it. I ran it. So forgive me if I do not bow to your lecture." Barrett did not respond right away. She sat still, hands folded, eyes steady on Bondi. Then, in a tone just as calm as before, she spoke. "Mockery is not advocacy, Ms. Bondi, and arrogance is not a defense." That line changed everything. Bondi blinked, caught slightly off guard, but she quickly covered it with another laugh. Louder this time, sharper. It echoed across the walls and bounced off the tension. Someone in the back gasped. Another whispered, "She is pushing it." Phones were raised again. Red recording lights flickered. The officers in the room began moving slightly. Not enough to interrupt, just enough to show they were ready. Everyone could feel it. The atmosphere was tilting, and fast. This was no longer just a courtroom. It was a live wire. Barrett did not move. She did not blink. She just watched. The more Bondi laughed, the more the room felt like it was spinning out of her control. And for a brief moment, the loudest sound in the courtroom was Bondi's laugh. Defiant, dismissive. But just under that, something else had started. A shift, a weight, moving toward Barrett, and the fall. It was already on its way. And for a brief moment, the loudest sound in the courtroom was Bondi's laugh. Defiant, dismissive. But just under that, something else had started. A shift, a weight, moving toward Barrett, and the fall. It was already on its way. If you are feeling this clash, smash that subscribe button right now. We are breaking down every high-stakes showdown that rocks the nation. Your support fuels the stories they cannot ignore. Justice Barrett leaned forward just slightly. Her voice stayed calm, but her words began to cut deeper. "Ms. Bondi, let us return to your claim that your past decisions reflect justice. You argued that aggressive prosecution saves lives. Let me walk you through where that argument breaks down." She paused just long enough for the weight to settle. Then she continued. "You claim victory, but at what cost? Let us imagine a young mother in Tampa, arrested under your zero-tolerance policy. She lost custody before trial. Charges dropped. But damage done, her life unraveled. Her child placed in foster care. You call that justice?" Bondi shifted in her seat. She looked away for a second, then quickly tried to meet Barrett's gaze again. But her face had changed. The earlier confidence now looked strained. Barrett did not stop. "Another case, a teenage boy, minor offense, no priors. You pushed for maximum penalty. He served time. Now he cannot get work. His life labeled before it began. You call that protecting the public?" The courtroom was still. Nobody moved. The officers were alert, but still. Even the gallery leaned in. Phones were filming, but no one dared speak. Bondi straightened her back, but her voice came out quicker now. "Those were legal decisions. I followed the law. You are cherry-picking for drama." Barrett replied without blinking. "No, I am lifting your logic into real consequences. Your argument claims toughness equals justice. But justice is not a scoreboard, it is people. Bondi leaned forward, trying to reclaim space. You are not a fighter. You are a figurehead. You sit behind that bench and judge people like me who actually did the work. That line hit the air like a slap. The gallery murmured. A few jaws dropped. Bondi thought she had scored a point, but Barrett stayed focused. This bench does not need fists. Ms. Bondi, it needs truth, and what I see is a pattern of pride dressed up as justice. Her words were soft, but they landed like bricks. Bondi blinked again. Her hands moved across her notes, but she did not look down. The courtroom had shifted again. This time, fully into Barrett's control. Not because she shouted, not because she pointed fingers, but because she made the stakes real. And Bondi, she felt it. Her voice was not shaking yet, but it was getting close. Justice Barrett took a deep breath. Her voice stayed steady, but the tone changed. It softened, just slightly, like she was no longer speaking to Bondi alone, but to the room. Let us put aside titles for a moment, she said. Forget Attorney General, forget justice. Let us talk about what this means for the people affected. She paused and looked directly at Bondi. Let us imagine a woman, a single mother. She works 2 jobs. One night, she is stopped and searched, charged for something she did not do. Because your office pushed for high conviction numbers. Her case was rushed. She lost her job. Her kids were taken. 3 years later, she is cleared, but she has nothing left. The courtroom was quiet. You could hear every breath. Someone near the front shifted in their seat. Another let out a slow, shaky sigh. Barrett's eyes did not move. Who cried for her? Ms. Bondi. Who stood beside her when she lost her children? When her reputation was gone? When she sat in a courtroom like this one, alone, scared, labeled? Bondi's face was still, her mouth tight, her hands clasped harder than before. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her confidence looked thinner by the second dot. Barrett continued, her voice rising just enough to carry, because, while you laughed earlier, someone like her cried. While you flipped through your notes, someone else was flipping through court dates they did not understand. And while you mocked this bench, families sat in real courtrooms with no one on their side. The gallery was frozen. Phones filmed silently. One woman in the back sniffled. No one turned to look. No one dared to interrupt. Barrett's words grew sharper, but they still carried a kind of grace. Your laughter, Ms. Bondi, spits on their suffering. Every time you minimize the weight of this court, you disrespect the pain people carry because of flawed prosecutions. Because of ego dressed up as service. Bondi blinked fast. Her jaw moved like she was trying to respond, but her voice did not come. She looked down, then back up, but her eyes no longer had the fire from earlier. Now they looked tired, almost uncertain. Barrett was not angry. That was the part that made it hit harder. She was steady, measured, but her words cut clean. This is not about how loud you can speak, Barrett added. It is about whether you can listen, whether you can face the harm that came from your decisions and still believe justice was served. The silence after that was heavy. Nobody moved. Even the court officers who had stayed ready all this time looked like they were waiting for something more, for the moment to settle. And in that moment, the courtroom was no longer just a place for legal arguments. It became a place for truth. Raw, exposed, undeniable. And Pam Bondi. She was no longer laughing. Pam Bondi sat up straighter, trying to pull herself back together. Her voice came out with a force that almost sounded rehearsed. I fought for truth. Every decision I made was to protect the people, but it did not land. The words floated in the air, but they felt thin. They lacked the bite from earlier. The room felt it. Everyone did. Even the gallery, which had been buzzing with energy, quieted down. Phones were still up, but no one was reacting the way they were before. Justice Barrett leaned in. Her tone stayed calm, but now it carried weight. Then why does your truth mock pain, Ms. Bondi? Bondi looked up fast, startled. That question cut deeper than anything before. You could see it in her face. She opened her mouth like she had something to say, but then stopped. Her eyes shifted to the left, then back. Barrett kept going. There was a case. People v. Rollins, 2010. A district attorney pushed for the harshest sentence on a nonviolent charge. Said it was about deterrence. That man lost everything. Years later, the court admitted the sentence was excessive. Apologies were made, but his life never came back. She let the story settle, then added, your argument today mirrors that case almost word for word. The gallery leaned in. Some gasped softly. Others shook their heads, whispering to one another. Court officers watched closely, but the room stayed frozen. Bondi swallowed. Her voice came out rough. You are twisting it. Barrett shook her head once. No, you did. That moment cracked something open. Bondi's breath caught. Her lips parted, but she did not speak. Her eyes were locked on Barrett, but she did not blink. For the first time, she looked unsure, not defiant, not clever, just stuck. And Barrett. She sat with quiet power. No raised voice, no dramatic gesture, just truth. And the weight of it was enough to shift the entire courtroom. People were not just filming anymore. They were witnessing a turning point, a real one. And they knew it. Bondi tried to hold her ground, but the floor beneath her had already shifted. Pam Bondi sat still, her jaw clenched tight. She had nothing left in her playbook. The fire in her voice was gone. All that remained was a flicker, something hollow. She tried again, this time slower, her words trembling. I did what I thought was right. I stood firm. I fought. The courtroom held its breath. Barrett looked at her, not with anger, but with clarity. This court does not bow to bravado, Ms. Bondi. It rises for justice. The words settled like a wave across the room. You could hear people whispering now, not in mockery, but in reflection. Some faces showed tears. Some leaned forward with furrowed brows. The emotion in the air was heavy. Real Bondi's hands tightened around the edge of the table. She blinked several times. Fast, her voice cracked as she tried to hold on to her image. You make it sound so easy. I was in it. I had pressure. People expected me to be tough. Barrett replied softly. You chose to chase wins. But wins do not equal justice. Justice is harder. It means accountability. It means asking who paid the price. Bondi exhaled sharply, her voice barely audible now. I tried. The words came out broken. Barrett paused, then answered with the same calm that had carried her through the whole session. You tried to win, Ms. Bondi. Try to serve. That landed hard. A few people in the gallery wiped their eyes. One woman near the back placed a hand over her chest. Phones were still up, but no one looked at their screens anymore. They were watching every second unfold. Bondi sat still. Her shoulders dropped, her head lowered. The courtroom was quiet. All the tension, all the shouting, all the arguments had led to this silence. It was not a dramatic fall. It was quiet, human, honest, and that was what made it hit so deeply. Justice Barrett sat upright, her eyes steady as they scanned the silent room. The tension had broken, but something deeper lingered. A hush filled the chamber, not out of fear, but respect. Then she spoke, clear and final. This court is adjourned. She stood with quiet authority, gathered her papers, and stepped back. The gavel never needed to slam. Her words carried more weight than whatever could. Pam Bondi stayed seated, her head low, her shoulders still. Her team rushed in, speaking softly, trying to shield her from the storm already forming outside. The courtroom began to move again. Officers motioned for the gallery to exit slowly. Phones buzzed with alerts. Reporters outside had the headlines ready. Within minutes, the moment was everywhere. On X, one post exploded in shares. Bondi mocked Barrett and got dismantled. On TikTok, a 10-second clip of Barrett's final words was already climbing the charts. The caption read, Barrett speaks for the voiceless. Outside the court, people stood watching live feeds, some wiping away tears, others shaking their heads. One woman told a reporter, this was not just a legal moment. This was personal. This was truth. People who had never cared about courtroom drama were now sharing the story. It was raw, it was real, and it hit hard. By nightfall, commentators were calling it the most emotional courtroom moment of the decade. Not because of yelling, not because of scandal, because truth stood taller than ego, and everyone saw it. What began as mockery became a masterclass in compassion. Pam Bondi walked in ready to dominate, but left in silence. Barrett did not shout. She did not flinch. She listened, she answered, and she stood her ground with grace. She did not just win the debate. She shattered a legacy built on bravado and intimidation. Her words were sharp, but they were never cruel. Her power came from calm, not volume. And in that courtroom, justice did not roar. It whispered, but everyone heard it. For more powerful stories like this, hit that subscribe button, because sometimes silence speaks louder than laughter.